This is the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla.
Best of America can be found in places where patriots are brave enough and free enough to be able to stand up and speak up, and where small businesses grow our economy one job at a time.
Sarah Palin has long railed against the culture in Washington, the going along to get along attitude that has hurt so many Americans. Well, right now in Colorado, there's an unbelievable situation unfolding regarding the U.S. Senate race. Today, we're joined by Owen Hill, who's been affected by the shenanigans of establishment hacks in the Centennial State. Governor Palin has proven right again. Her worry about how Vladimir Putin's Russia would deal with the Ukraine if Obama were elected is coming to fruition. Connecticut gun owners take a stand, and Mark Burnett's new movie hits theaters, and it is Palin approved. A brand new Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson is on the way, and just ahead our latest edition of Steel Resolve with Sarah Steelman. First, we are joined by Owen Hill, a true patriot. He's an Air Force vet, a budget expert, and a legislator. And he is a husband and father of 4. Owen Hill, welcome to the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio.
Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. I sure appreciate it.
Now, I'm going to throw this right to you because you can probably explain all this a lot better than I could. The craziness going on in your race right now, it sounds just like the backroom deals Sarah Palin has talked about in Alaska in the past and the nonsense we're so sick of in Washington. Basically, what 2 establishment candidates are what? Swapping places through some hocus pocus here, all with hurting your conservative campaign in mind?
You know, they certainly did come up with an agreement about 2 weeks ago and have been planning this for a while. And so a congressman is switching to run for the U.S. Senate, and that candidate is now running for Congress. And the problem here is much deeper. I think there are actually some decent people, but it's this hubris coming out of D.C. to think that, well, if we just get the powers that be to fix the outcome, then everything will be good. And rank and file Republican members, people watching this, just kind of have that feel of, you know, it's like Wizard of Oz or something. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, and everything will be okay.
Yeah, it's this sense of entitlement, right? I mean, I think Governor Palin said it well the other day. She said it's time to put inspiration, ingenuity, and integrity over incumbency in the GOP.
You know, I certainly couldn't say it better than the governor. She's tapped into something here, though. I think that we continue to see on, and it's not a Republican or a Democrat thing. It's this. This is what happens when you use power. This is what happens when you get too accustomed to it. You forget that the people who elect you are just expecting you to represent them and to listen to them, not to come and tell you what's going to happen, but to come and earn your support. And that's the core of Republican values, isn't it? It's earned success. And that's what stinks to high heaven about so many of these deals, is the sense that there is no earned success. It's just an insider's game.
Now, where do things stand right now? Have they flip-flopped their candidacies here, or are things still up in the air?
They have the congressman announced his candidacy in Denver. Okay. And the former candidate has now just announced his candidacy for Congress on the east side of the state. Okay, so to break this down for folks nationally who may not be getting it, you're looking at you had an opponent in the primary here for U.S. Senate, and now he is going to instead run for Congress, and the person who was in the congressional seat is going to jump in and challenge you in the primary. And there was another lady, former House Majority Leader, actually responsible for bringing the state-run healthcare exchanges as a Republican to Colorado, and she got out of the race. Rumor is to get her campaign debt paid off. So it's across the board. It just feels like people have pulled the wool over the primary voters' eyes and pretended like it's all okay. And instead of just trying to keep it as is and going against you fair and square, is this just a case where they were just getting worried about you and the swell of support that you're getting from grassroots and saying, hey, we better change this up and go ahead and endorse each other to try to double up and have extra power? Is that the deal? I rarely say this is a conspiracy theory. I think it's much deeper than this. I think it actually goes back to this idea that only money and electability and proximity to power is what wins election. And it's back to what Governor Palin said. It's about inspiration. We've forgotten. We failed to recognize that inspiring people on the Constitution and freedom and opportunity are the real keys to getting people engaged, rather than just, like I said, $1 million in a bank account somewhere. It is not that smells of D.C., doesn't it? It hasn't engaged people. It didn't work, unfortunately, in Mitt Romney's campaign, and it continues to have this feel that these are coronations rather than elections.
Let's talk about you, sir, what you bring to the table. You're a graduate of the Air Force Academy, a family man, a smart businessman. Why a Senate run, and what would you bring if elected?
Well, I serve in the state Senate out here, but before that, after I got out of the military, I worked for Compassion International. It's a children's poverty organization, just an awesome organization, all private charity. I ran their budget. We're doing about $700 million this year. And we work with kids in Latin, South America, Africa, and Asia, really through the local church with innovative solutions to help rescue these kids from poverty. But the truth is, I spent time around here, and there's a turning point for me when we were in one of the largest slums in the world outside of Nairobi. When you talk to these little kids and they say, you ask them what they want to be when they grow up, and it's the same as any kid down the street from us at the park. They want to be doctors and scientists and teachers, and you recognize we're hardwired to use our God-given gifts and talents to make ourselves and our family and our communities a better place. And there's only one system that creates opportunity that will allow these kids to do that. And that system is capitalism. It's free enterprise that takes hard work and ingenuity today and expands the size of the pie for everybody and creates opportunity tomorrow that doesn't exist today. So to me, this is deeper than just an economic issue. This is a moral issue for how do we promote and expand human dignity as much as possible, not just for our kids and our grandkids, but America is the nuclear core of capitalism and free enterprise. And if that goes cold, if that fails to continue to energize not just again our communities, this energizes communities around the world, and people still look to the United States of America as that source of freedom and opportunity.
Now, Senator, it's not just Republicans attacking your grassroots populist campaign. It's Democrats, too, obviously. Although I applaud the one guy, I'm sure you heard the other day some party boss compared you to Sarah Palin. He tried to bring up that old tired, false narrative against her being a quitter and saying you'd be a quitter, et cetera, not serving enough time, what have you. But I said he got the first part right. You are a lot like Governor Palin. You love this country, you love your family, you have common sense, and you won't be bullied by these gutter tactics thrown your way.
That's exactly right. We're not here to be bullied. To get out at this point would actually be to undermine the Republican ticket across the board. It gives voters a sense of being disenfranchised. And, in previous life, right, I worked in the private sector, and anytime you would have leadership come in with some consultants and just come in and tell everyone what was going to happen, even if it was a good idea, people didn't have buy-in. They didn't have skin in the game. And so this is exactly what's going on here. Our task is how do we pull together all sides of the Republican Party, recognizing that we need all hands on deck if we're going to beat Barack Obama and his puppet out here in Colorado, Mark Udall, and we can't do that with these backroom deals. We've got to look voters in the eye and build that trust and build that confidence, and that's my real concern because I love the Republican Party out here. I love the people out here. Colorado's our home, and the future here in Colorado depends upon a good, strong Republican Party, and this is not the way to do it.
A nice endorsement from Tea Party Express thrown your way recently. It's the 5-year anniversary of the movement. What is it about the Tea Party that attracts you?
Listen, I think the Tea Party is actually one of the most significant political movements in the history of the United States. It was this energy to go out and say, Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. We're tired of people who in Washington do one thing and come back here and say a different thing. And so here's this groundswell of people saying we're fed up. We want representation that's going to look at us, tell us what they stand for, go back to D.C. and honor those commitments. Because you see, you can't fix D.C. You don't solve this from the inside. It turns out that D.C. is actually the problem here. And unless we can break up the money and the power being aggregated in D.C. and send it back to the states and back to our local communities, we're never going to solve this problem. And the Tea Party gets that, and they understand it, and how could we not be excited about that kind of energy to preserve a constitutional republic where we have 50 different states, 50 different laboratories, experiments of how do we blend government and business and churches and schools and education to get the life we want to live. So absolutely, I think it's a phenomenal movement, and we've got to get not just Tea Party support, but we've got pro-life support and Second Amendment support. We had some historic recalls out here where we pulled out we kicked out the Senate president and 2 other senators in recall elections. All of this kind of energy saying, we're not going to put up with someone coming to tell us how to live our lives. We want to make these decisions for ourselves.
Well, you know, Senator Ted Cruz and Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Tim Scott, they desperately need a guy like you in D.C. to give them some support. And in the end, sir, your race, I mean, it's really shaping up to be, you know, insiders willing to do whatever it takes, no matter how unethical. And you, a man with the right intentions. We really appreciate it. And can you let our listeners know how people can get on board here and learn more about your campaign?
Well, absolutely. We'd love if you'd visit owenhillforsenate.com. Check us out on Facebook, Owen Hill for Colorado, or on Twitter at Owen J. Hill. And come be a part of what's going on. Recognize that we've made huge strides in the past, and as we continue to stand our ground and say we're looking for an outsider voice, it's not experienced, rich politicians that we're looking for. We're looking for normal men and women who represent families, who represent communities, who are going to go and say, look, there are a few things the federal government should be doing. They're outlined in the Constitution. Everything else, the 9th and 10th Amendment, that sends back to the states, that's the solution for our kids and for our grandkids. And truth be told, it's for kids around the world.
Owen Hill, thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. I sure appreciate it. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Check out owenhillforsenate.com. That's Owen Hill, Senate.com. The media called her stupid, and they laud President Obama at every turn as brilliant. Yet while Obama continues to flounder and be wrong on almost everything, Palin has proven right again and again and again. Well, this past week couldn't have given us a better example. Back in 2008, Palin warned, quote, after the Russian army invaded the nation of Georgia, Senator Obama's reaction was one of indecision and moral equivalence, the kind of response that would only encourage Russia's Putin to invade Ukraine next, unquote. Now Putin is readying his troops. Looks like Palin was right yet again. Connecticut patriots got it right this past week after politicians there tried to force an un-American state directive down the people's throats in which law-abiding citizens would have to register their guns with the government. Only a fraction obeyed this ridiculousness. Kudos to Connecticut for standing up for the Constitution and their Second Amendment rights. And if you're sick of the movies nowadays and seeing the unsavory Matt Damons and Sean Penns of the world on the big screen, there's good news. Jesus is at a theater near you. Mark Burnett and Roma Downey's new film, Son of God, has opened, and Sarah Palin is encouraging Americans to go see it. After all, it is the greatest story ever told, bar none. To see any of the governor's posts in their entirety, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page and follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA.
It's time for Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson and Kevin Scholla.
Hey, Susan, how are you?
Kevin, I'm doing okay, but I do want to talk about something specific tonight.
Yeah, I think it has to do with a tweet.
It might. It has to do with a statement from our Republican National Committee Chairman, Reince Priebus, who wanted to honor women because it is, the Women's History Month that's coming up, and he mentions all of these great Republican women, except he must have accidentally forgotten Sarah Palin, who was the first female Republican to run for Vice President of the United States.
Yeah, trailblazers, they called it, right? And, you want to play devil's advocate here and try to give Priebus the benefit of the doubt? Okay, here we go. Let's say it was all old-time people. Susan B. Anthony was mentioned, for example. You could almost say, okay, fair enough. But here he starts mentioning Nikki Haley. He starts mentioning Susana Martinez. Governor Palin helped get these people elected. But
without Governor Palin, neither one of those women would have had the Republican nomination, and neither one of them would be governors to this day.
And you don't even need anything more than your first point. She was the first Republican and still the only Republican woman to ever run on a national ticket. There's only been 2 on any ticket, her and Geraldine Ferraro on the Democrat side. It is unbelievable. And, you know, if you want to do this stuff, fine, but come out and say that you have a problem with Governor Palin then, because they did the same thing back during the convention, you know, pussyfooting around everything, saying, we're fine with Governor Palin, and then didn't invite her. Same thing here. They try to, you know, have it one way and then not the other, and then take a shot like this.
Well, they want to know why more women in the Republican Party don't get invited, because many women don't feel welcome. And they look at actions like this, where the very words that he used in the quote in his press release that he sent out, that he's inspired by stories of our country's strong-willed women and breaking ground, trailblazers, breaking through glass ceilings, and to not include Sarah Palin is really just an affront to GOP women themselves. There are a lot of us that may not agree 100% with the things that Sarah Palin has said, but one thing women do understand is they do understand when another woman is being picked on, and this really is just par for the course with what's happening with our Republican leaders, both at the national level and at the state level, because the real secret here is they don't want anyone on a platform where that person might disagree with them.
You know, and the glass ceiling quote also, that's clearly a shot because Governor Palin used that line during the campaign in 2008. It was something she used on the trail. So here he's even using words from her, let alone candidates that she helped get elected and reelected, you know, situation with Nikki Haley. And you know, nothing against Nikki Haley or Susana Martinez. You want to mention these women? That's all well and good. But to ignore Governor Palin, one of the highest-rated governors ever, male, female, or anything else in this country while in office, and then the first woman ever as a Republican on a national ticket, to put something out like this, it's just ridiculous. I mean, look at what the RNC has become. We've talked about the party as a whole, now look at the RNC.
Well, Mr. Priebus might think that he's clever, but here's my prediction. We're just going to wait you out. People like you, leaders like you, who pick and choose your favorites, and you pick people who are going to go along with the policies that you want. That's the problem of what's happening in the Republican Party today, because they are elevating, not in all cases, but they are elevating people who are just towing the party line.
Listen, I've been an RNC card-carrying member since I was 18, and the only reason I didn't do it before is because they wouldn't let you until you were 18. And the last few years, I know a lot of people have already said goodbye, I'm done with you, but I kind of liked looking back at that card and seeing members since, and it's been such a long time now, and loyal to the RNC to an extent. Well, you know what? The last couple of years, I've given, instead of, you know, a good amount of money each year. I think last year I gave $1, and I waited till December, and when I sent it in, I wrote Palin on it in big letters because they just don't get it. But you know what? This may very well be the last straw. Maybe I'll send 50 cents come December just to have that there and be in it in case it gets back to the party of Reagan and the party of what is now Palin and Cruz. But if it does not, you know, it may be time to just say that's enough already with this nonsense.
Well, they work hard to try to marginalize people like Sarah Palin, but it's pretty much at least once a week now you see a news article where things that she said that were way ahead of her time, such as the stances that then-candidate Obama was taking regarding Russia and Georgia at that time, would lead to Russia wanting to invade Ukraine, which they scoffed at and they laughed at her, but she was correct. Just like she was correct on what's going to happen with health care and the rationing, just like she was correct on many things, I think that the truth is going to be in what we continue to see rolling out here in the United States. And as much as these party establishment, old guard leaders, as much as they dig in, the more determined I think the average American is becoming to say, you know what, I reject that, and we need something different and someone new in the next elected office, whatever election it is that they're voting for or voting in, because it's time for these type of leaders to just move on, get out of the way, and let's make room for people who are really willing to do what they say they're going to do on the campaign trail.
Great job, Susan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Stimson in Virginia. More Commonwealth Common Sense next week. Now our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. Sarah Steelman is off, so I'll say a few words on another brilliant Sarah Palin move. This past week, Governor Palin posted one of those motivational posters, you know, the black posters with the big white letters and then a picture. Well, it was titled Liberals, and under it a quote from William F. Buckley, Jr. The quote, "Liberals claim to want to give a hearing to other views, but then are shocked and offended to discover that there are other views." Above the quote, a picture of Keith Olbermann. What a perfect choice. The hateful approach of liberals today is exemplified by ESPN's Olbermann. Now, with his new show, his latest gig is mocking others. In his past shows, he talked about Sarah Palin's, quote, stupidity and called her a, quote, phony. He even said while referencing Palin, quote, that woman is an idiot. He blames Sarah Palin in part for the Gabby Giffords shooting. And he's attacked many other women, too. A few years ago, Olbermann quipped, quote, the total, mindless, morally bankrupt, knee-jerk, fascistic hatred without which Michelle Malkin would just be a big mashed-up bag of meat with lipstick on it, unquote. Pathetic words from a pathetic man. Sadly, that's the M.O. of liberals today. Sarah Palin featuring Olbermann is perfect. Once again, just like on death panels and Putin, Palin is right. This is Kevin Scholla for SaraNet Radio. Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. The Palin Update, including Commonwealth Common Sense and Steel Resolve, is on demand and available for download, so just head to SaraNetRadio.net, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on SaraNet Radio. Visit SaraNetRadio.net for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also, follow along on Twitter at SaraNet Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Susan B. Stimson, and at Sarah_Steelman. Palin Patriots is our feature on SaraNet.net. Check out the writings from our great panel of contributors, including Martha Zoller, Dan Bongino, and Bader Carmoot. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Just go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Sarah Steelman, Susan Stimson, and everyone here at SaraNet Radio. Thanks to Owen Hill, and thank you for listening today. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.